How do you make your guitar chug? That was a question I was recently asked, and when I hear that, I think of palm muting. It gives it a chuggy sound, or chunky. It adds a lot of bass to what you're playing. So you've got the good old open E5 chord here. That's what it sounds like when I'm not palm muting it. But I add my palm to the strings, and suddenly it sounds a lot beefier. So this is with the palm mute, and then I'll go without. I'll go between them. So palm mutes can help make a song or your guitar sound a lot heavier. Something that's common in metal is doing a lot of palm mute accents. So what I mean by that is going between having some palm mutes and not palm muting. So it could really make something more interesting as well. So instead of just doing this, throw in some palm mutes. So doing stuff like that with the palm mute can really add some metal to your metal. So let's do a close-up of what I'm doing on this right hand. So basically what I'm doing is right here where the strings are coming right into the bridge. And these individual pieces are called the saddle, in case you did not know. But right here, like literally right where they start to connect into the bridge, that's where I'm going to rest the side of my hand. It's called a palm mute, but you're really not using your you're not using your palm to mute it. You're actually using the edge of your hand right here. I guess you could still say that's the palm, but I think of it more as the side of your hand. But anyway, that's what you're going to use on the palm mute. So it's important that you make sure you're not too far back this way, or else you're going to be missing the strings entirely. The other thing is, if you have them too far this way, closer to the pickups, it's not going to sound very good. It's going to have a more tinny sound to it. You're also going to run the risk of moving the notes out of tune, because you're kind of like bending the strings a bit, and I'll show you what I mean. So you take the side of your hand. I'm really trying to get all this in the camera here. It's kind of a funky angle I got it at. But so yeah, the side of your hand right here, you're going to put that gently right here where the strings are connecting into the bridge. So this way, when I'm palm muting here, you get that nice chunk sound. So you see, if I go too far back this way to my right, palm mute's gone. So you gotta make sure you get it more over the strings there, just right where they start to connect in. Because if you go too far towards the fretboard, that's the sound you're going to get. So the further I go, it's almost like the higher the note wants to go. So no, I'm kind of not in camera here. There we go. That looks better. So you see it's way too thin and tinny, I think. But you have it right back, your palm right back where those strings connect into the bridge. That's how you get a good palm mute sound. And you can do this on any string really, but it really sounds best on the lower string. So on your low E, A, D. So even the G string. But you start getting up here on the B string. So you can palm mute it, but it doesn't sound very beefy anymore. It's just kind of a more used for effect on what kind of sound you're trying to create. So I mean, you can do it on the high E string as well, but it doesn't sound very good to me. Like on the high strings, it sounds good to not palm mute, but when you start to come down here, whoop, I'm running out of getting my guitar out of the camera there. But so yeah, just stuff like that sounds a lot better to me. If you're gonna do any kind of lead type stuff where you're palm muting. Sounds better on the lower strings. That's my ear. So again, just to recap here, you're going to use the side of your hand here. You're going to place that right where the strings are connecting into the bridge. If you have it too far to your right, of course, if you're playing a left-handed guitar, this is my right and left are opposite of you. But for most of us playing on the right-handed guitar, if you bring your palm to or your hand too far to the right, you lose that palm mute. You got to bring it back over to the left a bit to make sure it's sitting on those strings properly. But if you go too far to the left, then you get that tinny sound and kind of bend the notes out of tune a little bit. Sometimes that can actually be useful. I'm trying to think of how there's one song I was working with, or I had to learn. Like it had an effect where you kind of move the palm mute this way. So it kind of sounds like I'm bending it, but I'm not. Just moving the palm mute up the string like that can change it. So that's actually an effect you can use, or a technique you can use to create that kind of effect. So beyond the palm mute, to really get a good chunky, chuggy sound out of your guitar, a lot of it's going to have to do with the amp you're using and the effect pedals that you're using. A lot of it's going to have to do with your EQ settings as well. So that's going to be another part of it. We're trying to get the chunkiest sound possible. Of course, doing different tunings could add to the beefiness of it. I mean, a lot of the heavier styles of metal will have down-tuned guitars. Like, you know, with a lot of death metal stuff, at least when I was getting into death metal, going down to B, having your low E string all the way down to a B, that started to get kind of popular. But yeah, so that's something else you could try. If it's not beefy enough with the palm mute, try doing your down-tuned stuff, mess around with your EQ settings. Probably, well, I'm not going to get too far into that, but a common thing with metal is to have your treble and your bass cranked all the way up and then you scoop the mids. However, I think I mean, that's what I used to do when I started off. I was like, oh man, it sounds so heavy when I have it this way. But I was actually just watching a video about this where it's absolutely true. You lose your sound against other instruments. So having your mids scooped like that, it might sound cool at first when you're just playing by yourself, but I do think it's important that you have your mids up. You know, like I keep my mids about halfway, at least on the practice amp. And of course, yes, I use a Line 6 practice amp in my office here where I teach. No, it may not produce the best possible sound, but it was $100 for a decent practice amp, so there you go. Well, I think that about sums everything up. If you have any questions with this, please let me know, and thank you for watching.